One of the things that I love about the Nintendo Switch is the stampede of retro-style video games that keep coming out for the system. Like my right thumb on the pump of a Lubriderm bottle on my nightstand, this system just keeps pumping out wave after wave of retro goodness. But the thing that I love the most about the Switch is that it doesn't dress to impress when it comes to video games. No Sunday best, no Idaho potato stuffed in a Speedo, no black tie suit to a dinner at Houlihan's, just good, all-around fun games. Who needs 4K gaming with ray tracing when you have an awesome Zelda game with previous generation level graphics? Yeah, sure, I'm not getting state-of-the-art visuals, but who cares? For me, the most important thing when it comes to a video game is the game any fun? This is the case for Virtua Racing for the Nintendo Switch, an amazing port of the original arcade version, which was released back in 1992. Developed by the Japanese emulation masterminds at M2, these geniuses took a half-ass broken source code that was mainly lost by Sega and blessed us with an insanely fun arcade port with much-needed upgrades such as 60 frames per second, 1080p dot glory, no, not that kind of docking, and a juicy 16:9 aspect ratio. As part of the Sega Ages series, this port was released in June 2019, and I gotta say, this game looks delicious. Like Taco Bell at 1 a.m. after 8 beers delicious. 5-layered burrito with hot sauce delicious. Now, I know what you're thinking. This game looks like an HD version of a Sega Saturn game, and yeah, you're kinda right. This game was released on the Sega Genesis, 32X, and of course, the almighty Sega Saturn. Now, I've been playing the Sega Saturn version for a long time, even with the Sega Saturn steering wheel. Shit, take a look at this gameplay footage of my wife, who was my fiance at the time, playing this back in 2018 in my old video game room.
Is this the one that the guy said is really hard to play?
No, that was Hang On GP95. She never played a video game after that. Anyways, the older home ports of this game were impressive for their time and for their respected consoles, but as we all know, Sega just loves to not do anything with their popular arcade IPs. It blows my mind. But getting back to what I was saying before about games being simple and fun, this game is that to a T. This port gives you the ability to play online with up to 2 players and offline with up to 8 players on a single screen, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, who the hell is going to do an 8-player split screen? Like, the box is going to be like 3 inches long depending on your TV. Yeah, no thanks. Like the days of the N64, don't go more than 4 on a split screen. But the game also features online leaderboards with downloadable replays for the top 50 players on each track, an additional easier steering option, and a Grand Prix mode that increases the number of laps to 20, which of course makes pit stops a mandatory part of your strategy. Now, there is a minor downside to this game. It's kinda short on the single player side with just 3 races, easy, normal, and hard, which I guess kinda justifies the $8 download price point. After all, this is a port of the arcade game, not the Sega Saturn version, which was loaded with extra content such as 7 new courses for a total of 10, 4 new cars, a Grand Prix mode where all players drive 4 types of cars on 10 total tracks. But back then, these ports were loaded with way more content than their arcade counterparts to justify this $60 price point. After all, these games were quarter munchers, or in this case, this game was a dollar muncher. If I remember correctly, the arcade cabinet cost $1 to play this back in 1982. That's like $4.69 in today's money. Ridiculous. If you're not familiar with Virtua Racing's gameplay, you'll understand right away how tough this arcade game can be. This game demands perfection. One bad crash or burnout could be the difference in whether or not you don't have enough time to complete the race in these timed checkpoint races. And this is where the quarter munching style of gameplay comes in. You gotta learn the tracks and master the gameplay in order to get to the finish line. And speaking of the Sega Saturn port, look at the gameplay versus the Nintendo Switch. Oof. Buzz, your girlfriend, woof. Yikes. Anyways, it's no comparison. It's like going from streaming Netflix on your 4K TV back to VHS tapes through your RF connection on your old CRT TV. It's crazy. How did we ever think that this was the pinnacle of home console video games back in the day? Ah, the good old days of the 90s, huh? But You need to remember that Virtua Racing is regarded as one of the most influential video games of all time. It's the godfather of 3D racing games and popularized the 3D polygon graphics in arcade games. Had this game failed in the arcades, we probably would not have seen other virtual titles such as Virtua Cop, Virtua Fighter, Virtual Striker. Crazy. Virtua Racing, we salute you, good sir. Overall, this game is a beautiful and fantastic addition to the Sega lineup. For $8, you get to experience a piece of gaming history in all of its 1080p glory. This is by far the best rendition of Virtua Racing since the arcade cabinet. Now, I'm sure there's some purist of the arcade game will disagree and nitpick its differences, such as, the color palettes, the different driving controls and feel to it, etc. But come on, man. When it comes to being a Sega fan, beggars can't be choosers. It's like the girls you hooked up with in high school and college. You gladly accepted what was given to you at the time. You didn't bitch about it. You were just glad that something decent fell into your lap. Literally. And this is what Virtua Racing is on the Nintendo Switch. Just be glad that we got something great from one of Sega's old IPs. It really is a shame that we don't have more remasters, remakes, ports like this, but maybe one day Sega will realize that it's sitting on a goldmine of awesome older IPs and give Sega fans what they really want. Classic gaming goodness.